This is Shelley, host of Unmasked Help, where men get real. Welcome back, guys. After my last episode, I'm sorry, not my last episode, the episode before that, talking about men and the concern for the size of their penis and comparing and, how to go around that and what have you. I had a few men reach out to me and had more questions. And I just felt like, and it was more questions along with comparing their penis size and the effect on their mental health. So I just felt like I wanted to kind of delve more off into one, what it is that you need to know about your penis, and two, does it affect your mental health and what you can do about that. So the problem is, men comparing their penis sizes, or they think that theirs is not adequate enough, and what the solutions of that could be, and what your part can be in solving the problem. So we'll go back over a little bit just to highlight. We know that the average penis, erect penis, is 5 to 5.5 inches, and they're all different shapes and sizes, and some are curved a little bit, and some of them are straight, and some of them, whatever. But the thing that you secretly worry about, what I've gathered that men secretly worry about, is the size anxiety, of course, and that's normal. It's normal for men to be worried about, comparing themselves to other men. We all know that society plays a role in that. Things that have been introduced into society can affect, your size anxiety. And then, the curvature, is it a slight curve? Well, yeah, it probably is, which is normal. But if it's painful, or you have a sudden change in the curvature, you could have a condition called Peyronie's disease, which is treatable. And that's not something that you should be shameful about. That is treatable. And then you have, you're stressed and worried about, as a man, performance. Um, sometimes erection issues can occur before the age of 40. And typically that tells us that, okay, well, are you under a lot of stress? Are you having a lot of sleep loss? Are you experiencing low testosterone? After 40, we have to look at, well, is a circulation issue? Are you having like high blood pressure? Are you having diabetes? That kind of thing. And then if there are some men who have reported that they have a decrease in sensitivity, or they have some numbness, we have to look at, okay, is there some nerve compression going on there? Are you wearing too tight clothes? Is your clothing too tight? Is your underwear too tight? Are you a diabetic? And you're experiencing diabetic neuropathy. That is a common terminology that most all of you know is neuropathy, and that just doesn't only affect the lower extremities, the feet, the toes, whatever. But if your penis is sending you signals, and I think I kind of touched on this in my episode, but if it's sending signals to you, you need to listen to it, because it can be the first warning sign of maybe you've got something going on with the heart, maybe you've got diabetes that has developed and you don't know it, or maybe your hormones are doing something wonky. And that's even more important reasons why, as a man, you need to take the time out of your day to go and have your annual wellness exams done. Especially if you're having symptoms, don't wait until your symptoms are so bad that we can't often reverse the damage that's already there. So, what is it that you should be checking? Well, I mean, it's not up to just me as a provider to check your manhood. You really need to be checking, are your morning erections normal? If it's not, okay, well, we need to be looking at blood flow. If it's something that's not going, if you're not waking up with, one for weeks, then you for sure need to be talking to your medical provider. The other thing is, how often are any of you, or how often do men really do testicular checks? Um, just like women have to are supposed to be checking their breasts monthly. Men should be testing their or checking their testicles every month. And there are ways to do that that you can look up on Google to know how to check your testicles for whatever lesions, nodules, masses. You need to be checking for the skin around your penis, your testicle region. Are there some abnormal spots? Are there skin changes going on? And then one of the more common things, and this kind of goes back to your prostate, is are you checking your pee? And I can tell you that most of you, if I ask in clinic, you would be able to tell me what was going on with your pee, with your stream. Are you dribbling? Is it burning? Is the stream weaker than what it used to be? And if it is, then we need to go, okay, well, let's just check your prostate. Because there could be something going on there that, is treatable. And if we get ahead of it and we get it under control, then, your pee goes back to normal, all the things. The other thing is, and I know this sounds like it like I shouldn't even have to discuss it, but I'm going to discuss it because I have some young guys that are listening and, younger generational guys that are listening. And I want to discuss this while we're talking about everything about penis health, is hygiene. So you should be using gentle, unscented cleansers, soaps in the perineal region, the pelvic region. That goes for women also. Um, no body sprays. You don't. It's not important that you use antibacterial soaps because that's going to take away your natural oils. It's going to take away your natural bacteria. And then if you're circumcised or not, so you would think that in your mind, you're probably going, I know more men that are probably circumcised than I don't. Well, you may, but there are some that are out there that are not circumcised like they should, that like you are. And so make sure that you're cleaning thoroughly daily. You pull the foreskin back, you clean, dry real good, and then you pull the foreskin back over. Um, we talked last week about masturbation myths. And, one of the myths was I had a patient tell me that his mother told him that he was going to grow hair in his hand, and it was to prevent him from even starting masturbation. But I have heard other, things that show that it can cause blindness, or it's going to make it fall off, or it's going to cause it to shrink, or whatever. And we know that's not true. So don't even start that with like your young guys or your own son or whatever. However, like we talked about last show, excessive or compulsive masturbation can be a problem. It can lead to erectile dysfunction. It can cause problems socially. It can cause problems, in your relationship. So, one thing that you should also be aware of that we discussed is, use water based latex lubricant. Um, I'm sorry, not latex, water-based lubricants, and you should avoid like petroleum jelly, which is like your Vaseline, because that's gonna trap bacteria in your penile area. Um, the other thing is that, be open-minded, open with your significant other about, your penis health, your concerns, what you feel like is going on with your penis. Because again, if you have that open communication from the beginning, that's going to lead to more good intimacy in the end and a stronger relationship. So just always be open and communicate with your significant other about what's going on. Um, the other thing that I kind of had a question about from a couple of people were what are some of the things that as a male you can do to prevent some problems in the area, your penis, your manhood. Well, one of those is, you want to exercise because that increases blood flow, but that, kind of boosts testosterone. You want to make sure that you're eating healthy for your penis, just like you would eat healthy for your heart. Make sure you're getting the leafy green vegetables in, that you're, getting your omega 3s in, that you're taking, a lot of hydration, not a lot, but the appropriate amount of hydration every day. And that doesn't mean go out and drink 5 or 6 energy drinks every day. That's not hydration. Excessive caffeine can lead to dehydration. And some people say make sure that you're hydrating well. If you're smoking, now is the best time to stop because it decreases the oxygen flow to the penis, which in turn affects your erection. Make sure that you're getting regular labs. And we've talked about that. I've talked about that several times. You want to check your testosterone. You want to make sure that your blood sugars are normal. You want to check your cholesterol. Make sure that you're getting your prostate screenings done at the appropriate age and time. Um, if you don't make time for your health, your body will make time for illness. That was a quote that I read some time ago. If you don't make time for your health, your body will make time for illness. And that is so true. If any of us, none of us take the time out of our day to take care of our health, we're all going to be in trouble. Your illness will slow you down. Then have to go through the whole, well, your life is disrupted, your quality of life is, crappy, whatever. The other thing that was addressed to me, over the past week was the psychological impact of a man's penis size and their mental health. We know that from adolescence that you as a man, you are conditioned to link your sexual organ with self-worth. It's unfortunate, but it's the same way that society links manhood to men do not show weakness. They don't cry. They don't, none of those things because you're supposed to be the man. You're supposed to be stronger. And, you have that locker room talk going on when you're growing up. Some of you, are introduced to porn at an early age, which is unfortunate. And all of you, from what I gather, is you all compare your size to one another. If you're not doing it among your friend group, you're doing it among people that you see on TV or that you see in, unfortunately, porn videos. But there's a falsehood too that men often believe that the bigger is better, and that's not true. Like the size of it doesn't matter. It doesn't make the sex any better. It doesn't make it better for your partner. Um, Really, I mean, honestly, it's not performance based. The size of your penis is not performance based, and it doesn't matter. Again, I think 85% of females that were um, questioned or polled, they didn't even really care about the size of the penis. 85%. I mean, that's an astronomical amount of a number. We don't care what size it is because it doesn't matter. It doesn't make your performance better, I guess. Is what I'm trying to say. But, mental health effects can be, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to get all my thoughts lined up because I've gone from two different topics. So, the mental health effects that penis size can have on a man, or, the effects that he thinks that, his penis is too small or whatever, is one, performance anxiety. Um, maybe you as a man have body dysmorphic findings. You're constantly thinking that your body is not comparable to other people, that you're less than other men, that the size of yours is less than any other man, that you're smallest, than any other man. And you perceive yourself as inadequate. The other thing is chronic shame. So you tend to avoid mirrors. You might avoid intimacy. You might avoid, conversations when it comes among your group, your male groups, what have you. Then the other thing is identity disturbance. So your self-worth is not based on the size of your penis. However, that is the way that it can affect your mental health if it's something that bothers you. If the size of your penis is something that's bothering you, that you've got concerns about, then you may tie your self-worth in with the size of your penis instead of actually taking into your own, your purpose or your values or your own integrity, that kind of thing. So it's just a cycle. It's a cycle of shame. It's a cycle of cycle of avoidance, it becomes a cycle of isolation, it becomes a cycle of depression. And there's just a psychological fallout that happens with that. So really, it runs deep. There's up to 45% of men that have expressed dissatisfaction with the size of their penis, even though it was in normal range, average length. Um, those men with size anxiety are 3 times more likely to have social anxiety. You may have a performance disorder. You may develop depression. You may avoid intimacy. And then you have the avoidant behaviors like skipping intimacy, or you won't even go for your medical appointments, your medical visits, because you're afraid your provider is going to go, okay, drop the pants, let's do a complete assessment. And you're automatically embarrassed, especially if you're standing in front of a woman. But quite frankly, I think it's a lot harder on you to go stand in front of a man without your drawers on, because you automatically think that that person's going to judge you for the size of your penis because you think your penis is not adequate enough. Um, but the other thing is, how do you get around all that? So you have to think there's got to be a solution to that. At the age of 13, you may have developed this problem. You may have started comparing yourself to other men. And now you're 30 years old and you're like, okay, well, for the past, 20 years of my life, this is what I've, focused on has been nothing but the size of my penis, comparing it to others. I'm nervous, I'm anxious, whatever. I want to be in the dark all the time if I'm with my significant other. I never want them to see the size of anything. And so your question to me is going to be, or has been to me, well, how do you recover from that? Well, you have to start developing a recovery mindset. And what does that look like? Well, healing is not about the size of your penis. Healing is about expanding your self acceptance of who you are and what size your penis is, regardless of what size it is. Most of you are average anyway. There's not a lot of you walking around with a micro penis. I'll be honest, but you yourself may view it as small, and so you have to start expanding the thought, your mental mindset of self accepting of what it is, and that's what you've been blessed with. There are there's therapy that you can attend, therapy that can hopefully help you build a higher confidence, therapy that can hopefully, improve better emotional connection and relationship health, emotional connection with yourself, not just with your significant other, but with yourself also. You want to hopefully reduce your anxiety and your depression and reclaim your masculine identity. You know, it's when you do that, it's rooted in peace and authenticity of who you are as a man, that there's nothing wrong with you, when we're discussing your manhood, or when you're discussing your manhood, that you are very much worthy. If you're able to stand in front of a mirror and go, hey, I'm proud of myself, I've come so far, then congratulations. That is such a feat to have to overcome. But, you know, even if you don't go to therapy, start doing some self reflecting at home or on your way to work, or, during your break or whatever. And talk to your significant other about it. It's a lot to have to, it's hard to retrain the pathway in your brain to get away from thoughts that you have, told yourself for years. It's hard. But positive reinforcement goes a long way. And it's something that you have to do consistently every single day. You can't start it and skip 3 days and think that that's going to be a consistent pattern enough for you to overcome the obstacles that you faced, and the body dysmorphic that you may be facing and the depression that you may be facing. The biggest thing that I can recommend for you is to grab this problem by the horn. Grab it by the horn, the problem that it is. You're facing the problem. You know what the problem is. You've identified it. And now you've got to, find the solution to it. And what does that look like for you? Well, do you start going to therapy? Do you do self therapy at home? You know, I'm going to recommend that you see a healthcare provider even if it's just one time, and discuss either depression symptoms that you may be having, or maybe your penis has been telling you something's going on with your health. And that may have a lot to do with your anxiety because you've noticed that something's been going on with your penis that was not there before. Your manhood's changing. Y- Yeah, you may be 50 years old, but that doesn't mean that your manhood has to change that much. So if you've noticed something's going on with it, well, then go and sit down and talk to someone about it. Google it if you want to. Maybe it will alleviate some of the anxiety and stress that you're experiencing. And I'm not going to tell you not to Google because we are all Googlers. We're going to Google anyway, but at least making an appointment with somebody that you can sit down with and you can talk to, whether that's therapy or a healthcare professional. And if it's depression, okay, well, we can treat that. If it's something going on physically with the penis, then we can also treat that. There are ways to treat that also. I just want you to more or less, I wanted to kind of go into more of the mental health side of it because I feel like just from the questions that I've received over the past week, that a lot of men are affected negatively by their manhood and their misperception of their manhood. And anything that I tell you, reassurance or whatever, is not going to really make you feel better, right? It's just not. You're going to have to stand firm, stand 10 toes with whatever evil thoughts that are negative thoughts that you're having, and make the decision that you're going to make the changes in your brain, whether that's going to see somebody, sit down and talk to somebody, talking to your significant other, talking to yourself whatever, exercising, eating healthier, taking a multivitamin with zinc, whatever that looks like for you. But you are 98% responsible for your healthcare outcome. So if this obviously, and it's not so if it obviously is a problem for males, and it's not anything that I can fix for you, although I wish I could. I just hope that I give you the right tools or the beginning of certain tools that you can utilize to go and sit down with somebody and talk and go, hey, I listened to this woman and she told me that this was not normal and I want to come and talk to you about it. I hope that that's the first step, that you can take the first step tomorrow or even today to start healing your mind and start accepting for you for who you are and whatever your manhood is accepting your manhood for what it is. Yes, there are treatments that you can do that are going to, that might, and I say that in lowercase letters, italicized font, in quotation marks, that might, increase the size of your penis, but it's not long lasting. It's not scientifically proven. And most of you are too young to go get a penile implant. So that's just my take on that. However, if that's something that you are interested in doing, then I would find the specialist and sit down and talk with them or research and see if that's something that you want to do. I don't recommend it. I would recommend it if you told me that you've had your prostate removed, you've gone through radiation or cancer treatment and it doesn't work no matter if you took medicine or not. Those are often good candidates for a penile implant. But as far as growth, that just I don't think that that's appropriate. But I am a female and I'm not inside your brain, and you need to do what's going to be best for you. I'm just giving you the tools to start somewhere. And hopefully I want you to be aware that yes, it does have an effect on your mental health, just like the same thing with women and their body and the way they view themselves. We all are hard on ourselves. We all are not accepting of ourselves in one way or another. And the way that we overcome that is to accept who we are and how we were made and to do better with what we've been blessed with. And by better, I mean, by better, I mean, do we need to exercise more? Do we need to eat better? Do we need to start supplements? Do we need to go to therapy? Are we depressed and we need to treat that accordingly? Get my annual wellness visits, talk to somebody that I can trust change jobs if you have to because I'm stressed too much. I'm driving in 2 hours to work. I don't have enough time at home. It's affecting me physically and mentally, all the things, guys. So start today, start tomorrow, and just focus on 5 steps a day. But the very first one that I want you to take is to look at yourself in the mirror every morning and start loving you for who you are and accepting you for who you are and accepting your manhood for what it is. Unless there's something physically going on with it that might be related to health that we can fix. We don't want to, wake up one day and go, something's wrong. I know something is bad, whatever, but this woman told me just to get up and accept it. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. I don't want you to think I'm trying to talk you out of ignoring health reasons why your penis may not be as healthy as it used to be. But anyway, I hope that I've opened the door for you to gain confidence and encourage to take the bull by the horns and accept your manhood for who he is. Um, if you have any other questions, any other comments, any other show advice, topics, all the things, feel free to reach out to me. I'm here. I respond. I'm open to anything. My email is unmaskedhealth@gmail.com, unmasked without ED on the end of it. I will respond to you. And I hope that you share, subscribe, like, follow, listen to it again if you need to. Go back and listen to the 2 prior shows to this one if you need to. And let's just unmask everything that you're feeling and you're suffering with as a man. And until next time, have a great week.